So this movie was pretty decent. Now the lead up to me watching this movie in theaters was pretty back and forth. I saw the trailer for it when it first dropped and it looked pretty interesting to me in the way that it was presented, so it got me interested in it. But then when more trailers were released, it began to look more stereotypical and less interesting to me, so I just kind of began to ignore it. But then what really made me want to see it in theaters was the 100% Rotten Tomatoes score and the high praise that it was getting from everywhere else. So after watching the movie, I can definitely say it was a decent movie and very well done, and some aspects are a little lacking, but I definitely recommend this movie to people. And overall, I do say that this is a little bit overrated, but let's talk about the actual movie. Now, when the movie initially began, I had some different feelings about it. Don't get me wrong, the opening segment was pretty well done for the most part. I was really into the overall narration and the way that it was explained and set up this stage to this movie, and not to mention that the premise in and of itself is pretty intriguing. But shortly after that exposition, the first segment of this movie was a little bit disappointing to me, to be perfectly honest. The main character of this segment was pretty annoying to me in all honesty, and I found her interactions and decisions to be pretty stupid. And not to mention the overall setup and way that this movie was proceeding in its original segment kind of was very stereotypical to me. But then the movie subverted my expectations when it came off to an anthology-like series. Now for those of you who don't know, this movie is basically told from different perspectives, from different characters, but all leading into the same narrative. And I think that aspect to the storytelling does a really great job with ensuring the mystery of this movie and exploring it in very interesting ways. I definitely think it would be a lot more detrimental to this movie if they followed the school teacher character throughout the entire film and her perspective. Another great aspect that this movie does from its method of storytelling is that it basically allows you to have better context for other scenes that happened in the previous movie, but gives you a better understanding of what led up to them. For instance, you can see characters and what they go through before they reach that certain scene in the movie and what they were going through and leading up to the emotions to that. The bar scene in this movie is one that really comes to mind. When it first appeared in the first sequence of this movie, all I could think was, wow, this was just really boring. I don't care about either of these two characters. But then I got to see the lead up to the scene from the other character's perspective and what he was going through, and it did offer a really good amount of context to what was happening during this scene. I really did enjoy how this movie was able to subvert certain expectations, especially with Josh Brolin's character. When his character is introduced in the beginning of the movie, it's kind of annoying with how he's presented, and it just leads you down this certain path of storytelling that you expect this movie to follow. But then getting to see it from his perspective and how he changes and understanding him more as a character does a really great job of allowing his character to grow. Now the performances in this movie were also pretty hit or miss. The main character woman from the first segment of this movie I felt was a little bit lacking, and there is a pretty unconvincing child actor in this movie. And I do understand the argument when people say that child characters in movies can process trauma and other aspects and emotions differently from what you would expect, but I do feel as if that becomes almost an excuse when every single horror movie does this and basically just uses an excuse to have a weaker child performance throughout this movie. And unfortunately, his segment in this movie does take up a good amount of time. Now to be clear, the actual segment in and of itself and how it's written and what they're visually showing is very interesting as it reveals the mystery element to this movie, but I would be lying if I said that the child actor's performance didn't bother me. I found that the villain in this movie was a very well presented character. There were elements with her that were genuinely unnerving and creepy. Not to mention she as a character was able to convey this overall emotional, manipulative, and controlling nature to her. Now there are some other criticisms of this movie that are kind of mixed with me personally. For one, I found the certain jump scares in this movie to be well presented for the most part. Some people can say that jump scares are just inherently cheap, but I think I tend to disagree with that. Jump scares can be very well presented when they're done right, if you show what's genuinely unnerving or creepy, and this movie does show some things that are genuinely unnerving and scary, but it really is annoying and detracts from the overall experience when studios feel the need to throw in this cheap sound effect, basically a loud noise that happens outside of the film's universe. And like I said, the jump scare is well presented in that moment except for that element, so it really leaves a sour taste in my mouth. On one hand, I appreciated the actual visual element that they're showing and ideas and conception to that jump scare, but on the other hand, the loud noise just detracts from the overall experience. Now overall, I definitely recommend that people watch this movie, and if you saw the trailer to this movie and think that this is a movie you're absolutely going to love, you're probably going to love it. For me personally, this is a well done horror movie with a few aspects that are kind of lacking. There are some aspects that are well done. Personally, I don't think I'm ever going to watch this again, but I definitely recommend it, and this one gets a 6 out of 10.